Hi, this is Mark. Congratulations. You have found this amazingly awesome show. Chances are you're listening to it right now on whether it's iTunes or Stitcher Radio or some other mobile app that allows you to stream this amazingly awesome show to your ear holes. And I can't stress how awesomely amazing this show really is. But did you know that you can also catch the latest episode of this show on the Tangibound Network? That's right. Go check out tangiboundnetwork.com. You can look them up and you can listen to it right there. It's even mobile friendly. What more could you ask for? Which means you can pull it up on your iPhone or your Android, even your Windows phone. Yeah, who has one of those? But still, point remains, you can do it. You can do it. Check it out, tangiboundnetwork.com. Listen to this show, the latest episode, every time. Check it out.
Life sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time. Stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Welcome to The Crazy Life, everybody. This is an extra special episode because we do have a guest. We actually found someone who wants to talk to us. Yay, us. So, that being said, with me as always, well, first, I'm Jen. For any new listeners joining us, for any of our regulars, you know me. And we have Brian with us. Hey, Brian.
Hey.
And Hanno, as usual. Hey, Hanno.
Hey.
And from Dark Angels and Pretty Freaks, we have Neil. Hey, Neil.
Hey.
Nice.
Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you so much. I am very excited to be here. I love the show and I love you guys. So I'm really looking forward to this.
All right,
Awesome.
Come on, Neil. I don't want to start crying before we start here. It just works because I got a sniffle thing going on. No,
Right? You can mask it. You're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I'm sneezing.
it's my allergies. I swear. It's my allergies make me bawl.
The worst allergies ever.
Yeah.
I try to tell Sharon that when she finds me in the fetal position, but she doesn't buy it.
Yeah.
Is your allergies acting up?
Yeah.
I'm allergic to standing up.
My allergies, I swear to the dog.
The worst part about it is I am very susceptible to tears, especially when I'm not on my medicine. And my eyes will tear at just about I sneeze funny and my eyes will tear. And everyone automatically assumes I'm crying. And then I try to explain to them there's a difference between actually crying and my eyes watering. And no one wants to believe you. And
They're like, it's okay. You're safe here. Talk to me.
Yeah.
And no, they're just, my eyes are watering. I swear, crying is a physical release of emotion. Eyes watering is a physical release of irritant.
Sure it is. It's okay. Talk to us.
Right.
And the unintended pat on the head.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
A little verbal pat on the head. It's like, yeah. Gosh, I've had that more than once in my life.
I'm just picturing an episode of 30 Rock where Liz Lemon's like bent over the toilet and she's crying and I can't think of his character's name, but Alec Baldwin's character like reaches her, like stretches a broom out toward her and taps her on the shoulder and he's like, they're there.
Exactly.
Because he's so awkward with emotions too, you know.
Right. Well, since we have a guest today, we're going to kind of bypass our normal format and kind of skip through the week in review type stuff. And we're going to kind of go and have a great conversation with Neil.
It's a lot of pressure.
Neil,
I said that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be an amazing conversation.
I'm shooting for mediocre, so I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
I'm already letting you guys down.
I always like to set the bar low anyway, so.
Yeah.
Nice. Now, Neil, you've had, you were playing sports and stuff when you were younger. Is that kind of how things began?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how I played sports, and I was big into BMX riding, and a little bit of skateboarding. I like skateboarding. I was just lousy at it. So probably one of the reasons I kept landing on my head all the time. And aside from sports, I didn't wear a helmet as a kid when I did BMX and skateboarding.
Well, who did though? Like in fairness, because you're in the same age group.
Yeah, none of it.
Yeah, it wasn't the thing to do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Most of our parents.
That's how it was back then.
Yeah, most of our parents were probably like, walk it out, rub some dirt on it kind of mentality.
My parents weren't going to spend the money on a helmet.
Yeah.
They were like, just be careful,
Right.
And not that they didn't care about my well-being, but it was just back then it was looked at as like, oh, that's an accessory. You don't need a helmet.
Exactly. Yep. Or elbow pads or knee pads. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So, to kind of bring the audience up to speed, so that kind of, so you had ended up having a few different head injuries, which led to a brain injury based from head trauma. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. So I had multiple concussions up through, my whole life. I mean, and, because then as I got older, mountain biking, snowboarding, and it created a permanent brain injury.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
So
how did it first manifest itself?
Mm-hmm.
How did I notice that there was a problem?
What was the first thing that was like, okay, what's going on here?
The first thing I noticed was that I started smelling burning plastic all the time. And then after it going on, it was funny. I remember the first day was really bad. I was drinking coffee and I kept thinking that maybe like something was wrong with the coffee machine and plastic melted into the coffee, and I just kept smelling plastic. So I dumped the coffee, made new coffee, and everything smelled like burning plastic. So I was going around the house checking, like, is something on fire? And then for days I'd be asking my wife, Annalise, do you smell that? Is there burning plastic? And after a while I just realized that's something's going on, that it's not normal, because no one else smelled it ever I'd be at work. Like, do you smell that? There's plastic.
Because even if it was for a part, part of a day, sometimes how sometimes something will get in your nose, you just can't get that smell out of there or whatever. So even then, I could see dismissing it for a little while. But if you're on day like 4,
right,
be like, unless plastic melted in my nose, yeah, exactly,
right. So that was the first thing, and then after after going to the doctors and doing a bunch of research, I realized that I was having symptoms before that, but I was just chalking that up to normal everyday, either headaches or a little bit of dizziness, or I thought I was too tired, or, maybe I rode my bike too hard, or I didn't eat right that day. But then realizing like, oh, there were these little signs leading up to the plastic burning day.
But mostly physiological.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To begin with. Yeah.
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 Now, we've talked about kind of each one of our experiences kind of getting that aha moment. So I don't know if it was anything like that for you when they finally came to you with a diagnosis. Was that kind of cathartic to actually know that there was something going on, or is it more fear?
Well, it's interesting. It took a little while at first because then other things started happening, and it took a while to narrow it down to being sure that it was just post-concussion symptoms and not, they had to find out if I had early onset dementia, Parkinson's, MS, because I had all these little things that, the neurologist would say like, wow, you have all these symptoms of all these different things, but not enough symptoms for one thing, but we got to check it all out.
It's gotta be scary.
It was tough. And on top of that, soon after the burning plastic, I started getting a lot of anxiety, which I had never really had in my life. So I was going through all these tests to find out that hopefully I didn't have these other things, as well as this newfound anxiety that I didn't know what to do with or how to deal with. So kind of to get back to your question, it was nice to finally know that it wasn't everything else, but it was also very difficult when the doctor said, because he kept saying your brain is damaged. He didn't say injured because it's damaged. You have brain damage, and this is how it's going to be. There's no going back. And that was hard because I realized I will never be able to go back to how I was before the brain damage. There's nothing I can do to repair it. So that was really difficult. It's not like a broken arm. Your arm's broken and then it heals and it's not broken anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it was, that part was difficult. But again, it was nice to know that it wasn't any of these other things, which could have obviously, in my opinion, be much more devastating than dealing with what I have to deal with.
Well, I thought it was really great. I remember when you talked about this a little bit on Dapf Pod, and it's a lot of times we talk about how, especially when you can get yourself out of the mindset of everything is the worst thing in the world, or why me kind of a thing. I love that you were able to, like, you were like, it's news, it's not bad news. It could be way worse news. You were not, like, you were willing to accept that, yeah, it could have been so much worse, but it's still not good. So there's no reason to completely be like, hey, well, at least it isn't, you didn't put on like that false face that a lot of people do. You're still like, this stinks, but you were also far enough or you were also able to recognize that you were in a position where it could have been so much worse. And that, at least to us anyway, I'm sure, in your own time you maybe did or something, but you didn't really seem to let it like stop you, or you didn't seem to like, well, there's no point in trying anything, kind of attitude,
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And that was, I've tried to have that attitude throughout my whole life, like whatever, it could even be a thing, like, this may not be the nicest car in the world, but it's mine and I enjoy it, and I'm going to take care of it and like it. So a lot of with the health thing is like, yeah, it does suck. I don't enjoy thinking that I can't go back, but at the same time, I can still live the life that I'm given. I can still have a good time. And there's like you said, Brian, there's so many people that have to deal with so much more that it gives me that, that second to breathe and go, okay, I can deal with this, just like everybody else has to deal with what they have. This is a thing I have, and fortunately, it's not terrible.
Yeah,
and it's working through the processing of all the different emotions and accepting emotions are facts. They just exist, and you're going to feel sad, you're going to feel happy, you're going to feel angry. How you react upon them, that's what you have the control over. You can't control your emotions per se. You can control your actions. So it sounds like you really took the time to kind of process through, intentionally or unintentionally, I'm not sure, but to kind of process through the different emotions to get to a good place of acceptance, which is really hard to do sometimes.
Yeah, and I'm still working on that. As everybody knows, you have good days, bad days, or good moments and bad moments, and I try, really hard to stop and process whatever it is I'm feeling and allow myself to feel that. There are days when I'm just bummed out about it, and it's like, well, that's okay. I'm going to give myself the time to feel that way, as opposed to try and pretend that I shouldn't. And then I usually try to limit that time. Like, okay, I'm going to be anxious or sad about this I'll give myself an hour and just think of all the crazy things, and set a timer. And then after that, go, okay, now let's do something to get out of that. And if I need to feel this way again later, I will. But right now I felt that way. I need to kind of find something positive.
That's so great. That's so important to do. I've mentioned it on here before about doing the same thing with my depression. That there are just some days where it's just like, nope, this is just going to be a lay in bed, wallow kind of day. But the difference is I got to try to tomorrow or later today, I need to try to make sure that it doesn't turn into a week of it or a month of it or what, it's like sometimes you just, or like I mentioned, I know on one of the episodes, sometimes you just need to throw a hissy fit and get it all out. Like you were saying, for that hour, just have all that negative thought, just get all that anxiety. And then it's like, okay, I'm throwing this away. I'm just going to move another direction now, and that's great if you can do it. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jen.
Oh, that's all right. I was just gonna say. Absolutely. It's so interesting because it is a mourning of sorts that you kind of have to go through as well. Because a family member has Parkinson's, and their wife and I have had conversations, and one of the things that I told her is she was talking about all these plans and stuff that no longer can happen. And what I told her is, I'm like, you need to mourn this. You need to mourn those dreams, those aspirations, those things that can't necessarily happen in the way that you expected them to. Things can still happen. I mean, you can still go on these trips. You can still do these things. That doesn't change. But how you do them is probably going to change. And how things come about is going to change. And all the different aspects of it will change. And you have every right to, you have to feel those feelings. It's not fair. You know, this shouldn't have happened to me. And this sucks. All completely valid and need to be felt and need to be processed. So the fact that you recognize that's awesome. Now, it also seems like you have a pretty good support system from what I've listened to on the show with Annalise and some of your family and obviously Heno and your friends.
Yeah, I mean, and that makes, as you guys know, that makes all the difference, you know, in how you go day to day, because having people, I mean, it's you know, it's got a compounding effect. If you don't have the people there to help you, then that adds to that frustration and anxiety and sadness about whatever you're going through, because all of a sudden you don't have someone to help pull you out or somewhere to turn or someone to talk to that's close. I mean, obviously we have doctors and I talk to my psychiatrist and all that, but so I'm very fortunate. I also asked them for help immediately when I realized something was going on. I said, you know, I wanted to know, like, if I start acting goofy, or if I'm forgetting things a lot, or if you notice a change, let me know, because I want to be able to talk to the doctors about that. I don't want to be told everything's fine, you're okay. I want to be told the truth, because then I can deal with that. Then I'm aware of what's going on. I want to live in a reality, even if the reality isn't the one I would have chosen for myself. At least I know what's going on. And fortunately, I have really honest people and people who care that do let me know and do understand when I, you know, have a bad day and I'm really dizzy and I'm like, I can't do this right now. I can't go work out. I can't go do this. I just need to not fall over. And people are like, okay, cool. We'll do something else, as opposed to, oh no, you'll be okay. You know, I know I'll be okay. Just let me know how I am, and that way I can help myself more. Excuse me.
Yeah, that's a great point. It makes, you're right. It does. It makes all the difference in the world. You know, when you can just look at someone and say, hey, my condition is this, or this is where I am right now. And they're just like, okay. And roll with it, rather than keep pushing. I don't want this to sound like a jerk kind of thing, but it's like, rather than keep pushing their agenda, you know, like, even if you had planned to go on a hike, at some point, if you're like, hey, I can't do this anymore, you need someone to be like, okay, and just, we're done, you know, rather than, push through it. It's just a few more, you know, it's like, no, I don't need that. I need, you know, I know my limits sometimes, and, you know, I need to stop. And you need people who are, you know, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's great. They also need to know when you do need a little shove, you know, like in my case, there's times where sometimes I do need that extra little push, but there's other times where it's like, look, if I say no, it's no, you know, it's not continue to badger me, you know, it's no.
And there's a big difference between encouragement and then somebody trying to fix you.
Yes.
You know, it's that, oh, I'm not feeling good right now. And it's that, you know, that person responds with, oh, are you sure? Is there anything I can do? You know, what are you not feeling good about? And if it's like, well, I'm afraid if we go work out, I'm going to drop a weight on my head. It's like, okay, that's not good. Yeah. If it's, I'm just feeling really bummed about this and I'm just really sad today about it, then it might be like, oh, okay, well, you know, how about we just go grab a coffee or go do this or go do that? Or, you know, what would you like to do? And that encouragement of maybe you don't have to sit in it right now, and we can continue to kind of do something we had planned. And again, I'm very fortunate because with my support group and the people in my life and with my injuries, it's not like I'm hugely limited to a lot of things. It's just, I have to be careful with some things. And a lot of it is just annoyances, you know, smelling things, forgetting things, not being able to, you know, the anxiety, which, you know, drives me up a freaking well, which is great because then I get anxious about being anxious, which is
Right.
lovely.
Yeah, it is,
So,
isn't it? Yeah.
That's a, yeah.
No,
That's
yeah.
a treat.
out of curiosity with the anxiety part of it, you said you had not been really an anxious person beforehand. So, like, did the doctors seem to think that came like as part of the head injury, or is it just something that kind of developed? And has it gotten any better since getting a diagnosis?
So here's the way it was explained to me, and I might get it wrong, but it was because of where the scarring is on my brain and because of the trauma. What's happening is my brain isn't responding fast enough to the anxiety like it did before to take care of it. So the way I understood it is that everybody will start to get anxious about something. It's human nature.
Sure.
And then their brain knows how to cope with it and goes, okay, whatever we do, like, oh, relax. You're getting worried about this thing, and your brain kind of talks you out of it. My brain doesn't respond as fast in that part of my brain. So when I start to get anxious, there's nothing in my brain saying, oh no, it's cool. You're going to be all right. So I just get anxious. And my anxiety, a lot of people will have, like they get anxieties when they fly and this, and that. I get just random anxieties. Like I'll start to get really anxious while I'm driving that the air conditioner pump in my car is going to go out.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Totally random.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things like the car is fairly new. It's got a warranty. Fortunately, I'm in a position where if I needed to replace the air conditioning pump, I could afford it. Mm-hmm. I could just not use the air conditioner. It's not
right.
Like, I'm not in the Emirates. I mean, it's not freaking 140 degrees outside.
Yeah.
So there's all these logical explanations that, there's really no reason for this, but my brain just doesn't allow me to think of those. So I just freak out about an air conditioning pump for a few hours. And getting the diagnosis, it didn't help that much with the anxiety. In fact, I think after realizing that I couldn't go back to how I was before, it created almost more anxiety, because then I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have this anxiety forever, forgetting the tools that I'm learning to deal with it, forgetting that there's ways that I can cope. But again, right, if that wasn't the deal, then I wouldn't have anxiety, because I'd be sitting there going, oh, that's no problem. Great.
Yeah.
So, but it's, as you guys know, it's a process. And I mean, and I'm learning and I'm learning a lot, and it's helping quite a bit.
Well, good. I'm glad. Yes. I'm glad it's helping then. What do you have, what's your go-to when you start getting anxious to kind of, try to help yourself, wind down?
So I do that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1
Sure.
Exercise a lot. A lot of just kind of slowing down the world around me and focusing on my breathing, and just bringing myself into right now. Because I've been learning that a lot of anxiety is worried about something that might happen, not necessarily my anxiety, I should say, not what's happening right now.
Right.
It's not like the air conditioning pump went out and I'm freaking out because I don't have the money to fix it and it's really hot. That's not it. So it's just bringing myself down, focusing on my breathing, and just going right now. Let's say I'm in the car right now. You're driving your car and you're going home. So just focus on driving your car right now. And that helps me quite a bit. But it's hard to shut it off completely.
Yeah.
The breathing, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 does help me quite a bit. Sometimes there are times I'm just so anxious that I just get frustrated with this. I'll forget what 3 is. And I'm like, son of a bitch, what's going on? Oh, we can swear on this, right?
Yes.
So you're dealing with it's interesting how our family and our friends are probably more forgiving of our physical disabilities than of mental disabilities. And we've talked about it a lot on the show, about how, you talk about, I couldn't get up all day, and somebody's going to give you a little razzing about that. But, you walk in, you get a cast on, no one's even going to question it. No one's going to be like, oh, dude, what? Walk it off,
Yeah.
But, so have you found any of that sort of a difference when, you say, of course, I'm dizzy, I'm going to sit down for a while. Okay, people will accept that. But have you also said, I'm feeling anxious now, and had anybody not understand you?
Not yet. However, if I'm in social settings or with other people, aside from Monalise, I will try to find a way to deal with it in myself. So I haven't been totally open with a lot of people about like, oh, I'm anxious right now.
Yeah.
I do talk a lot about the head injury and the anxiety with friends and obviously on the podcast and things like that. So most everyone I hang out with kind of knows. But I haven't, it's funny, Hannah, what you were saying about, the physical versus sometimes the mental. People will understand your physical limitations because your arm or your leg is in a cast. And it's hard for people to understand your limitations because you're not doing well at that time in your head. And I'm hard on myself that way too. I can forgive myself a lot easier for the physical things, but I beat myself up a lot more because of the mental things. And I wish I didn't.
Yeah.
I know that's not good. I want to be more accepting of who I am and realize that there's no difference between the mental and the physical injury. They're injuries or problems we have to deal with. But I do get on myself, particularly when I'm going through either a little panic attack or anxiety, and I get down on myself. I'm like, why am I? This wasn't me. This isn't me. I don't want to be like this. And I know it's only hurting me, but that's the honest answer. Is I'm really hard on myself about it.
Yeah.
My big thing that I go through, and I don't know if you have this experience as well, but I second guess my overreactions. So it's like I'll start having an anxiety attack, and then I'm like, I get mad at myself because I'm like, this is just an anxiety attack. What are you doing? Well, maybe I'm overreacting because I shouldn't, or is this? So pretty soon I get myself in such a situation. I'm like, is this an appropriate reaction or not appropriate reaction? And then that's where actually, my Brian and I used to play the game, and my husband and I now play this game called Rational or Irrational.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get myself into such a state. I'm like, okay, this is what my brain's telling me is my reaction. Is this a rational reaction or is this an irrational reaction?
Mm-hmm.
And we'll have to kind of talk through situations because I'll get so lost in my anxieties and so lost in my head that I can't determine what's a good choice and what's a bad choice, if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So,
yeah.
The distorted thinking worksheets that I bring up all the time on here are great for helping with that too. In fact, that's exactly why those things exist, is because those situations are so hard for so many people, especially if you've been that way a long time. Like if like me, my head has gone so far the wrong way that it's hard for me to recognize when I'm actually, because I think I'm thinking right. But when I look at those things and then reapply to the logic to the situation, I'm like, "Ooh, boy, I am in the wrong field here. Like I should be over there." So, yeah, they're very helpful for that.
One of the issues I'm dealing with now is that, and it's affecting Annalise a bit, is that I'm so worried about getting anxious, or I'm so worried about forgetting something, or I'm so worried about saying or feeling not like myself or how I want to feel, is that I'll get quiet and I won't talk, because if I don't say anything, then I'm not going to forget anything to say, and I'm probably not going to get as anxious. So I've been withdrawing a bit more than I'm comfortable with, and now trying to learn how to open up. And it's hard because I have somebody who's extremely understanding and extremely supportive. So I have I can say the wrong thing or forget what I'm saying. And she really doesn't care.
Right.
You know
what though?
She's like, what?
I feel like that's probably more about how you process it, because like you said earlier, you beat yourself up so much over the mental stuff. Like I'm sure when you forget stuff, it's probably incredibly frustrating, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Cause I go through the same thing. And since I've been on antidepressants, it's even worse. And, I forget things that I shouldn't forget, and I get mad at myself for forgetting them, because it's like, come on, you dummy. How could you forget blank, and so I'm kind of the same way. There's times where I'll not say something to somebody else because I can't think of what it is, or whatever. And I just basically in my head, I don't want to sound foolish, or I don't want to seem stupid, or, that kind of a thing. So, because I know if I do, I'll beat myself up for that. So I'm preventing something, it's
Right.
a ridiculous thing, but I do
Right.
it too. Yeah.
Insert here a little blurb for inner bully, folks.
Yeah.
If you have a chance, go back. In one of the earlier episodes that we did was on inner bully, and we talk about how we say things to ourselves that we wouldn't dream of saying to anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
If someone came to us with the exact same situation, exact same thing, asked us what our thoughts were on it, we wouldn't dream of saying to that person what we dare to say to ourselves and how we dare to talk to ourselves. And that's unacceptable. And the whole inner bully is talking about different tips and tricks you can use to kind of reframe your thoughts on that, and how to kind of break that cycle of really just, it's tough.
Mm-hmm.
To kind of beat yourself up. Like even when the moment I got engaged, which is a very, very exciting moment for everybody, I was laughing and crying and the whole works. And even in that moment, I had to check with others. I'm like, am I overreacting? Am I underreacting? Am I acting okay? Is this a normal? And I thankfully was around my friends and in my support group, and they all kind of gave me the feedback. They're like, anything you do and say is normal in this situation, because
Right.
there is no normal.
Yep.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, thank you. That helps me to.
Yeah.
But even in the most extreme moments like that, when you have those anxieties, I completely get where you're coming from, because it's like, am I saying enough? Am I not saying enough? Will I be embarrassed? Yeah, it's rough. It's tough to deal with.
Yeah, and then it's a reminder. I'm sorry, Hannah, go ahead.
I was going to ask if you're, as far as you've described having the strange thoughts, that lead to, you start going down a path of thinking that
Right.
that makes no sense, or is not, that's one thing to sit there, and to use cognitive tools to combat that. But do you also have an emotional component? I mean, do you sometimes where you just have that emotional anxiety too, where there's no thoughts involved with it?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I will get these things, and you guys may all be able to relate to this. It's the easiest way for me to explain it. But I will sometimes get this feeling like I'm hungover, that feeling of alcohol, depression, exhaustion, the dry mouth, all of that. But mostly the emotional stuff, and not have had anything to drink. And it'll hit me like a ton of, it can hit me I get home from work and sit down, and all of a sudden I've got the weight of the world is on my shoulders, and I just feel spent. It's the weirdest thing.
It's like fear.
Yeah. A lot of fear.
Now, when you do get withdrawn, do you have like the self-pity, or is it you know what I mean? Like the I don't want, when you're just feeling down on yourself, when your self-confidence is low, we have a tendency to kind of, withdraw and not be ourselves. Is that part of that component at all?
A little bit. It's almost more, I think it's a little deeper than what I have started to feel about it yet, because this is still somewhat, new to me.
Yeah.
So I'm still in that, when I withdraw, I'm still almost in that angry stage. I'm just frustrated and upset.
Yeah.
And like I was going to say, if I say something or if I get anxious, it's going to be a reminder that I'm not the way I was before. So I get a little quiet and a little withdrawn, and then I'm mad at myself about being quiet and withdrawn. And then I'm mad that I feel I need to be quiet and withdrawn because this thing is going on with me. So I haven't worked through that yet to get to the point of finding out what's under there, which I'm sure has a lot of fear and mourning. You know, I'm saying goodbye. You know, like
Yeah.
my psychiatrist said, you're saying goodbye to that person you were, and learning who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still at that angry point. You know, it's like I'm like on the fourth week of a breakup where you're just kind of mad at the person, you know, but you don't.
Heno,
exactly
didn't I
know
make a
what's going
very
on.
similar parallel on the show one time? I think I made a comment about my depression and how it feels like basically the stages of grief. Like you really go through. Actually, I don't know if it was on the show. I think I told Heno I was thinking about writing a blog about it, about how depression mirrors the stages of grief.
Yes, that's what it was.
Yeah, and
that's what I told my family member. The same thing. It's like you have to mourn. You have to go through those stages of mourning and those feelings. And a technique I was reading up on, or a tip, I guess, would be more along the lines that I was reading up on just the other day, is around forgiveness and forgiving yourself. And how difficult it is for us to say, I forgive you to yourself. So we can tell ourselves all sorts of great stuff, and some awful, awful stuff, but we have a hard time sitting going, you know what? I forgive you, you know, and just owning that, accepting it, and letting that sink in. And it's just yet another, you know, along with your breathing exercises and stuff like that. It's like, you know, you made a mistake. You embarrassed us, but I forgive you.
Yeah.
And we can move on.
Yeah.
One of the things I've been learning in group 2 is not judging. Is when you come, you know, when I'm dealing with my anxiety or my frustration, is not judging myself for how I feel or what I'm thinking or what I'm not thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But just taking a step back and just looking at what it is and finding a way that I can help myself in that moment without, you know, beating myself up, without making a judgment about anything about myself, which is tough.
Oh yeah.
That's
one of the hardest things.
Exercises for me.
Yep. I was just going to say same for me. It's a really hard one to do. Yep.
So besides one-on-one counseling of some sort, you're doing group as well?
Yeah. So the group, I'm not in group right now. I'll be starting up again. But the groups I've been doing are focused around I'm forgetting the word, kind of like self-awareness, mindfulness. And I'm forgetting the book that it's based on.
Oh,
too.
that's right. Yeah, you told me the book.
Yeah, it's funny because of course it's on my nightstand and I read it all the time and I can't remember the name of it.
Well, let me hold on real quick, Neil. If you think of it, send me the link. I'll put it in the show notes for people to look at later.
For sure, I will. And so I, you know, the one-on-one, obviously going to the neurologist, doing all that. Fortunately, that's pretty much done. But a lot of the groups have really been helping me. The one-on-one is nice too, and I enjoy that. But for some reason, the group seems to help me, or I'm able to understand it a little bit better because I get to hear about what other people are going through, and not everybody. I mean, people are in there that are, you know, maybe dealing with cancer, the loss of a loved one, and you know, or depression, or just anxiety, or you know, losing their house, losing their job. And so the group helps me to see how other people are triggered by the things they're going through, and I can relate a little bit more and to see the things that they do that work that maybe don't work for me. And so, yeah, the groups have been great. I mean, it was really important to me as soon as I realized something was wrong to do everything I could to help myself. So it was really important to get whatever help was out there and try anything. I wanted to try doing things without medication first, just because not that I think there's anything wrong with taking medication, but I thought if there's something I can do, you know, it's kind of like if it's the health thing too. It's kind of, if I want to achieve something with my body, I'd rather try to do it through like eating better or working out versus like, you know, just, I don't know, starve myself, you know, something like that. Right. So I wanted to see if there was a way to go about it first. So anything that was out there that was suggested to me that wasn't going to be dangerous, I thought, yeah, I want to try it. I want to do it.
That was the mindset I finally got into also. And it's so helpful when you go in to, you know, especially for therapy reasons, like if you're going into counseling, having that kind of mindset is you're so receptive to what you're walking into versus the way I think a lot of people, and I've cited this countless times about, Henno talked about it on Angela's Awesome podcast about going into therapy with it's going to go this way. Like, I'm going to dictate, and it's like, you do dictate in therapy, it's, one-on-one therapy. You do dictate how it goes, essentially. But at the same time, you have to be open to listening to them going, hey, what you're doing isn't working.
Right.
Here are things that will help you, and not going, no, I'm not doing these things because I've already determined they won't help me,
For sure. And I'm sorry, go ahead, Jen.
No, you go ahead. It's fine.
I was going to say, I try to have that attitude, and I have tried to have that attitude in life about anything. It's like, whatever I'm going into, I want to try and buy into it. I don't want to build up a wall or already kind of tear it down because it might not be my cup of tea. Like, I always think of the time I went as an adult to Disneyland, and it's so funny. I'm not a huge fan of crowds, but then I wonder, like, does anyone ever say I am a huge fan of crowds? I can't wait.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Right. And I'm, we don't have kids, and I'm not a huge kid person. And here I'm going, and I went with a friend, and my friend said, before we go, just buy into it.
Yeah.
Just be that kid, be an adult kid, go in there and just believe. Don't look for, don't try to pull the curtain back and look behind or try to, this is cheesy. Just believe, just enjoy it for what it is. And I had a freaking amazing time.
It sounds like going to a haunted house. It's the same mentality. If you go in there trying to find where everyone's going to jump, you're going to just be bored through the whole thing.
Right. So obviously, with wanting to help my health, whether it's physical or mental, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna buy in from the minute I walk through the door. Yeah. Then if it doesn't work for me, I'll find something else, and I'll buy into that the minute I walk through the door, because that time we have is so short and so limited that I don't want to waste time fighting myself on trying to be healthier. I'd rather just buy in. And if it doesn't work, I'll try something else.
Well, not to mention,
that's an awesome attitude to have.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, why would you, that's what kind of gets me. It's like, the reason I'm seeking help is because I'm tired of being miserable. Why would I go in with a mentality, why not abandon the mentality that's helped make me miserable and I want to get to better as quick as I can. I don't mean like shortcut ways, but I mean, like, I actually want to get there. I don't want to delay that process anymore. So, that's why I did the same thing when I walked into therapy, and I was kind of like, there were a few things that, my therapist mentioned, and I'm kind of like, that's not really who I am. I don't do, so what we did was we tried to adapt it to who I am a little bit so that I'm more receptive of it. There's just some things that I just know myself well enough to know I won't do, but she's like, well, maybe this. And it's like, you know what? Yeah. It's like, I'm not going to sit down and write a gratefulness journal. That's not me. I'm not going to do that. But I put thought into it every day. I think about it every day. And she's like, that's enough, because that meant, thinking about it is the key to the whole thing, so it doesn't matter if you actually do it or if you write it down. What it matters is the actual, process of thinking about being great, what you're grateful for,
Mm-hmm.
So there's that too,
Yeah. It takes a lot though to get yourself to that point.
Yeah.
Because how often, whether you're dealing with, brain injury or mental illness of any sort, everybody does this when we get ready to go to the doctor, or making that decision whether we need to go to the doctor or not. Or, it's like, I stubbed my toe. My toe still hurts. All the doctor's going to do is tape it up. So why am I bothering going to the doctor? And we automatically assume that we know what the doctor is going to tell us. Mm-hmm. They're like, it's like, why waste my time? Why waste my money? Because he's just going to say, or she's just going to do, and going down that path. We don't take into consideration the fact that they have the degree we don't. Maybe it is other things out there that we're not thinking of. And my friend, when on the last episode I mentioned, she actually went to her doctor and sought help for her stress and anxiety. And she was waiting in the waiting room and texted me, and she's like, what do I say? And I told her the same thing that I tell anybody. I'm like, what would you say if you had an injury?
Yep.
I said, you describe your symptoms. Don't give a diagnosis. Don't say, I have anxiety or I have, I think I might be bipolar or anything like that. I said, don't diagnose yourself. Don't pre-put that in their brain. Walk in and say, I'm having trouble in social settings. I'm having, my heart beating faster and I get all sweaty when I can't think straight when I'm in these types of situations. So give them the facts, give them those details, let them diagnose you. And I said, it's tough to do, but if you can do that and you can articulate your symptoms instead of your diagnosis, you should be good.
Really quick, I want to point out that I'm not going to go to the doctor because I know what they're going to say concept is distorted thinking. It's mind reading and it's projecting. So, just keep that in mind if you're doing it. Listen, we all know there are some things that, like physically especially, there are certain things that if you do it and you go to the doctor, there isn't much they can do for you, but it's still the idea of if you have that mentality of, well, I'm not going to go because I just know better. Well, do you? And also, again, take a look at those worksheets and when you look at that and go, oh, because
I find it interesting that.
What? Go ahead, Hannah.
I'm sorry, I was saying. I find it interesting that we have these interesting fears about groups too, where we sit there and we want to go and be part of because I don't want to participate with others, right? I'd rather just do my own thing. Yet the group is just
I know you're breaking
and
up.
maybe something that you can relate to.
Oh, sorry.
You can hear something that you can relate to. You don't have to participate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
yet people fear that group.
I can speak firsthand on that because my therapist at one point was like, I think you would get a lot out of group. And she was telling me there was a group that was just about to form and she's like, I'm just, letting you know, nothing's forced, it's totally your decision. And I went through the mentality of what if there are people who know me?
Mm-hmm.
What if they know someone? And I'm sitting there going, I get on a podcast every week and I talk about this, but I'm afraid of sitting in a group with people who might know me already. And it's like, who's going to be on there that doesn't? Everyone who knows me knows I have depression. I'm very open about it, So again, it's an irrational thought. And like Henno said, I also was going through they're going to judge me mentality. It's like, they're all sitting in there for the same reason. Well, maybe not the exact same reason, but somewhere along the line, you guys checked the same box, like you said, Neil, maybe someone lost someone, they're dealing with one kind of loss but it's all still loss, you all still have that common bond. And it's like, and really, if someone is sitting there judging you, they're cheating themselves because they're not going to get anything out of their therapy. So you let them have that. Don't worry about it yourself, Like, I can do the separation of these things, but I still didn't go into group therapy.
It's a tough decision. And, I made the leap between, because I'm very public about being bipolar, I made the leap about telling people I work with. And I still have anxieties and stuff about it, and I still kind of wonder if maybe it's going to hold me back. And, very key people in my support system cautioned me against doing it. And I thought about it, and I'm like, you know what? Anybody who knows me, even if they know I'm not if they don't know I'm bipolar or not, they know there's something off.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not going to kid myself and think that I'm amazing at holding myself together and playing the game 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do that. I can't play that game. And I'd much rather have them understand me and understand, why I may seem a little bit off at times. And I may not have the quote unquote normal reaction to things. I'd much rather have them have the whole story than to like, God, what's wrong with her? and judge me from a non-knowing situation, if that makes any sense.
Yes. It makes me very mad that, like, the number is something like 1 in 3 people will have some sort of mental health issue in their lifetime. Mm-hmm. That is a significant number. To tell someone that they have to be quiet because it could affect their employment potential or their, moving up or whatever is ridiculous on every level. It's not a weakness. It can be, absolutely. But so many people have mental illnesses or situation, injuries or whatever, and they still, go out there and they put in every bit of effort that they have, and they're every bit as productive as other people. There's obviously going to be people that don't, but you know what? There's people with no mental illness with no work ethic. They don't get to, they don't deserve to be promoted simply because they don't have a mental illness. I mean, don't get me wrong. There may be situations where mental illness can't, if you're a pilot or, there's certain jobs where you're going to be held back and there's solid reasoning behind it. But but to stay quiet has been the problem, like nobody talking about these things, even, what Neil's going through with just the head injury part of it, people didn't talk about that. You listen to old football players, I got my bell rung, whatever. I threw some aspirin in my face and I went back out and, this and that. And now people are starting to go, whoa, they got a concussion. And, like I talked with somebody last night that she's had concussion symptoms for over a year now. She's been dealing with this, and that's just, forgetfulness, dizziness, all the stuff like Neil talked about too. It's like she's now dealing with this, and it's like, if you go 20 years back, people would have just been like, walk it off. Now we're like, hey, this is significant. We need to, you need to be careful of these things, and people need to be aware. Dying. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So,
yeah,
good.
I felt very fortunate that this is coming up in the time we are now, because it is in the forefront of the news and people are very cognizant of it and they're very responsive to it. So when I went to go see the doctor first and I said, I've had a few concussions, it was like slam on the brakes, and the doctor was like, okay, well, we're getting, we're doing another CAT scan, we're doing all this, we're doing all that, we're going to find out what's going on, especially with the fear of CTE with, concussions now.
Definitely.
And Jen, I think what you were saying is, I think I really appreciate whatever somebody is going through. If it's a mental illness, or if it's some, maybe something that they're going through with their family, whatever. And people, whether it's work, and we don't have to be best friends, but to understand that sometimes it just makes it like, if someone is a little off, because I'm such a freaking self-obsessed person, I won't sit there anymore and go like, did I upset her? Why is she being kind of weird to me? Now, if you say like, I deal with, I'm bipolar, I'm like, oh, well, maybe it's not all me. Maybe she's just not feeling great. I think it should be about me, but that's all right. She can have her time too. So I think that's great, because then, and whatever it is, some people go like, I struggle with, eating, or I struggle with drinking, or I struggle with swearing. I mean, it could be something but they tell you and you're like, oh, okay, I understand now why you're, a little off today. Or if I know somebody is, like I'm allergic to sugar or whatever, I'm not going to offer them a piece of cake. So I think if you're open and you're empathetic, I think it only helps.
Yes.
Unfortunately, there are still some people that want to judge and then think like, oh, well, since she's bipolar and I'm not, I'm more qualified for this promotion before she is. Yep. And that's the stuff that pisses me off.
Exactly.
And is totally wrong and unfair. But.
And that's why I don't feel people should have to hide that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's going to happen, it happens with gender, it happens with, sexuality, it happens with race. It sucks. It's not right. But unfortunately, we haven't evolved ourselves to the point where it's been null and void. So we got to deal with it in a little bit.
Yeah, but definitely. But at the same time,
people like you that are helping move that forward.
Exactly.
By also educating other people and making, because a lot of people will sometimes get scared. Like if somebody, if you're you're bipolar or somebody has a mental illness or you suffer from depression or you have concussions or whatever, people are like, oh my God, I don't, it's almost like how sometimes some people will react if they see someone in a wheelchair or with some kind of physical difference that they don't like, do I look? Do I not look? Do I stare?
Yeah.
And when people come out and say, oh no, this is what I'm going through and this is what it is, it educates people and they're like, oh, it's okay to talk about this. And then whoever that is with whatever ailment they have can say, yeah, of course it's okay to talk about this.
I think
unless of course they don't want to, which is totally respectful too.
I think great examples of this are like OCD and bipolar. Because if you go ask 20 people what each of those things are, you're going to get mostly horrible, or not horrible, but you're going to get incorrect responses.
Yes.
You ask somebody what OCD is, and they're going to probably think that they're going to, well, somebody who's always clean and that they're always this. And it's like or even ADD is another great one. There are so many things that fall under those umbrellas that are not those things. Or like bipolar, everyone thinks that what bipolar means is that you're calm 1 second and flying off the handle the next. And that's not what bipolar is.
Or that you're schizophrenic.
Yeah.
Right.
Bipolar schizophrenic. They think bipolar is just a shortened version of bipolar schizophrenic. And it's like, no.
No, these are very different things.
Really different. Yeah. And they can be together. But,
that's why like Jen telling people, hey, I have bipolar and here's how it affects me. That's why all of that is so important to all of us. So, and I can't hammer that home enough to people that most people don't even understand depression. They don't fully understand. People can get anxiety because everybody has anxiety. They can get depression because everybody's got a little bit of depression, but to some extent they can't understand like the further ends of these things, like how anxiety could be so bad that you can't leave the house, like literally can't leave the house, or depression so bad you physically can't get out of bed, and same with bipolar and these others is it's like, that's why we got to keep talking about these things. That's why it's so important when you see causes out there that are like, hey, we're trying to spread the word and the message. Is like, get these things out there to people, because the more people know, the more it just becomes normal. It's no different than, again, somebody who's got carpal tunnel. You see it all the time now. Used to be you'd see somebody with the hand wraps on and be like, what is going on with that? Or like you said, somebody in a wheelchair. It's like, there's no reason to look at somebody or to know something about somebody and then immediately think that they're less of a person. You know? So
depression is always a tough one, I think, because people get sad and then they hear somebody's depressed and they think that's you're just really, really sad.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so they think they can cheer you. And that's, friends, but friends I've had that, and Brian, like you that suffer from depression. It's like, no, you're not going to just cheers. That's not how it works.
Oh, it'd be great if that's how it worked.
Yeah, wouldn't that be awesome? You're
just throw on a funny movie and I'm all set. Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, it would be lovely.
I would start every day with something funny.
One of the things that's great about this podcast is we put a face on these disorders.
Yeah,
and it's hard to be judgmental or misunderstand when you have somebody's face in front of you. It takes the stigma out of it. And I think one of the things that, and I just want to give Neil a big compliment for coming on here and sharing how there's also no stigma in doing the work.
Yeah, definitely.
A lot of people are afraid to do the work because they're afraid of what's going to happen to them. And I love hearing somebody come in and say, this is what I'm doing. These are the tools that I'm using. And, no, it wasn't easy. No, I wasn't, yay, let's go do this, but I'm doing it anyway and I'm doing better and they're working for me and not always 100%, but they're working because so many people are stuck and lost and not even reaching out for help. So I just want to say thank you, Neil, for coming on and sharing your tools and what you're doing and your success with it.
Yeah, and again,
for sure.
Thank you.
There's tons of help out there for whatever it is that's ailing you. It's, and again, even with money restraints, there's things out there to help. So it's, please, people listening, it's like, please don't avoid getting help because of these reasons, you know? And like I said, we've all been there. Like everyone who's gotten help at some point was that person who was too afraid, too withdrawn, too whatever it is, you know? So it's some
what will
point.
other people think?
Yeah. You know, so.
The harder
if somebody sees me, you know.
Yeah. The harder you try, the worse, and for me especially, the worse I'd get. Like the harder I try to hold everything in and hold everything together and try to pretend to be this normal person, the worse I would be and the more transparent I would be, and people would just see right through it. And I would get so frustrated because it's like, no, I'm normal. See, normal. And they wouldn't buy it. But when I'm honest and say, you know what, this is who I am, this is what I deal with, this is what you might see, you know, and I just do it in a very conversational way, just like, oh, I don't know if you know, but you know, I am bipolar, so you know, if you see a couple different things, that's usually what it is. Please don't take it personally, because it's not, it's just kind of thing. You know, someone brought up my breathing, because I do breathing exercises a lot when I'm stressed, and it comes across as me sighing.
Yes.
And so people think I'm frustrated. And it's like, I kind of am, but I'm kind of not. I'm like, no, those are just my breathing exercises I do to kind of keep my head together and while I'm stressed out. And once they understand that, instead of them getting like, you know, she's all irritated and getting all put out about things, they're like, oh, breathing exercises. And then go back to work.
I get asked a lot if I'm okay when I'm doing it. Like, cause I'll close my eyes and focus on what I'm doing, you know, and be like, are you okay? And my response has become working on it.
Yeah. And I also wanted to say about getting help that there are people out there that not only want to help you, but are looking forward to helping you. You're you're not a burden. You're not putting somebody out. They have either gone to school for this, they have gone through it themselves, they know somebody who's going through it, and they have dedicated their lives or a big chunk of their lives to help you with whatever it is you're going through, whether it's, you know, depression, anxiety, bipolar, alcoholism, whatever. These people want to help. So I know sometimes for me, I'll feel like, and that can go for the doctor, the neurologist that I go see. I mean, that's what he wants to do. He wants to help people that have issues find a path to a better life. So, you know, you're not a burden. You're not putting anybody out. These people are there because they want to be there for you. Whether it's a group or even if it's a friend that's asking what's going on, or doctors, they want to do it.
That's a
As
great
Hanno
point.
says, let people be of service to you as you be of service to others.
Yeah.
You know, and it's hard to do. It's hard to do, but let people be of service to you.
Yeah. And like I said, you know, it's amazing how many people around you want to be that person too. And like for me, you know, I isolated people for years. And then when I started opening up about it, it was amazing how these people that I had inadvertently pushed away were immediately right there. Like, how can we help? Like, what can we do? You know, and not in a, we're going to fix you way, but what do you need from me, basically, you know? And
they were just waiting for you to ask.
Yes, exactly. And that's the thing. You know, that just, and you can't ask for a better friend than that. Somebody who stood by you while you did nothing but shove them the other way. And then as soon as you go help, they go, how? You know? So, like I said,
what can I do?
It's amazing to find these things. And sometimes you know that it's going to be there, you know, like, you know, I'm sure Neil, you didn't question for a second that Annalise would be, you know, right there as a support person, or Henno or whatever, you know, so it's just, sometimes you don't think somebody's going to be that kind of person, and then they, you know, surprise you. So, you know, give people that opportunity too. Cause you know, it's amazing how many people have such a great support system and they don't even know it. They don't even realize that they do, you know?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So.
Well, that being said, do we have any more questions or anything else for Neil?
Neil, was that book called like Hardcore Zen or Hardcore something, or
No, when we're all wrapped up, I'll just run in the other. I mean, it's right there. It's got something to do with living chaos or something like that.
Something. It's got a really wild name. I love it.
It's a wild name, but it's also cool. Like when you think you're like, oh yeah, no, I'll run in there and
put it in the show notes.
Yeah,
it'd be great.
Definitely will.
In there.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Maybe I'll post it on our Twitter or Facebook as well. So yeah.
Well, because if we are good, then I'll start going into our wrap up. We good?
Good.
Cool.
Well,
all right.
Well, really quick, let me do, like Heno already thanked Neil for joining us, but thanks again, Neil, for opening up and joining us. Cause I know, I know this is not easy for anybody to open up to. I know you share, on your podcast and that, that you are one of those people who want to help others who've, if you can do something to help somebody else, you've always been, in the time I've known you, you seem to be that guy that would do that. So thank you for being that person as well as doing this and letting people know if they're listening and they've gone through some of this again, that they're not alone. So yeah, do you have anything like last words or anything you want to say?
Well, I want to thank you all. I mean, for having me on, and it's kind of neat because this is actually very comfortable because obviously, I've known Heno forever. Yeah. I just met Jen tonight, but heard her voice and know a lot about her. And Brian, I feel like we've been friends for at least a year and a half now because I hear you every week and, been on. So it's kind of nice because I really felt like I was coming on, and I was just coming on and talking with friends. So it wasn't like, oh my God, I'm going to be asked all these questions by people I don't know. But I very much appreciate you guys, letting me on and spending some time with me because it in talking more about it, I get more and more comfortable with myself and what I'm going through. And it's also nice to hear what other people are going through and what they do to help themselves. So it's been great. And if anybody out there listening is going through anything and wants to talk to me specifically about things I'm doing, they're more than welcome to contact me. I mean, I'll talk to anybody about, well, pretty much anything. Mostly me, but I'll talk about anything.
I'm very me-centric myself, but narcissism.
Yeah, right.
Great.
Yes. So in the wrap up, because definitely I want to make sure that we get your contact info out there, Neil. But
she means like your address and where you work and
phone numbers, all that stalking stuff.
Sure,
you can have it all.
Yeah.
I'll send you some of my hair so you can smell it.
But I love Dark Angels and Pretty Freaks is Neil's podcast that he does with his wife Annalise. A lot of fun, and you guys, I don't get a chance to listen nearly as much as I want to listen, but I love getting that peek into your guys' relationship and kind of the banter back and forth. And I love the fact that you bring a lot of laughter, and I feel very kindred spirits to you guys a lot of times because of how you look at things, and you do bring laughter into situations to help manage them and work through them and stuff. So very, very great show. Definitely, folks, make sure you tune in and download their podcast and give them a listen. And Neil, if they want to contact you to continue the conversation, how can they contact you?
You can email me through the darkangelsandprettyfreaks.com website, or you can it's darkangelsandprettyfreaks@gmail.com, or you can find me on Twitter at angelsfreak and then the name number 7. And or obviously you can contact anybody on Crazy Life Podcast, and they'll forward me or give you my information. So easily accessible. I'm like a pair of sweats.
I just had quite a few different comments passed in my head, and I had to use them.
Comments for another podcast.
Can't say that. Can't say that.
Right.
Continue on. Heno, if people want to continue the conversation with you, how can they reach you?
You can find me on Twitter at Ida Heno, and you can find me on Facebook, Heno Heiter, and always or through the Crazy Life Facebook page.
And then you can also reach the show through the Crazy Life Podcast. .weebly.com is our website. Our email address is the Crazy Life Podcast at outlook.com. I can't even talk. And me, I'm on Twitter at Jen's Crazy Life. That's Jen with a G. if you wanted to reach out to me that way. And Brian, how about you?
You can also follow the show and see when new episodes go up on Twitter at The Crazy Life Pod. I can be found on Twitter at Stunami. If you want to check out the other podcast I'm part of, which is Salty Language, which is very not safe for work, you can find that show on Twitter at salty_language or at saltylanguage.com. You can find our Facebook group at facebook.com/group/crazylifepodcast. And again, on that page, there's a, like notes or something. I can't remember what it's called. I should look so I can remember, but, that has a bunch of links to different help numbers and websites and like support, like online support groups. And also, I can't remember I'm terrible with the remembering tonight. So, but one that can help you find a therapist if you need it. And they can work within like monetary restrictions and such. So there's a bunch of great tools over there. If you can't find it, reach out to one of us and we can point you in the right direction. We're also part of the Tangent Bound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com. And however it is that you find us, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, or whatever it is, if they have a share or a like button, please use that to kind of help, bring attention to us. And also, if you're on iTunes, please leave us a review, because that helps us get easier to be noticed because we move up in their algorithm and such, so people wouldn't have to dig forever to find us. Is that everything there? Yeah, I think that's all the links. Well, one other thing. Make sure you you go back and check out our intro song, which was written by the lovely and talented Henno. Written and performed, I should say, by the lovely and talented Henno. So there's that. And also, I'll remind you, we're not doctors, therapists, trained professionals of any kind, just four people who were sharing their situations, opinions, and whatnot. Hopefully, something we said will help you. If so, please don't self-diagnose, as Jen said earlier. Trust the degree that a doctor has and go talk to them about getting a game plan in place. And lastly, if you're feeling suicidal, planning suicide, or in the end stage of it, please don't act on those things. Please seek help. Call suicide prevention hotline number, call 911, if you have insurance, check your insurance card. They may have a hotline to call. Go to our Facebook group and, find one of the support groups, just reach out to someone in your support system, but please don't, act on it, because we don't want to lose anybody. There's help out there if you want it.
Absolutely. And with that, thanks all you guys for joining us, and keep breathing. Hang in there. Have a great week.